How strong is the United States military? Why is the US military the strongest? What's up guys, it's Potato Phil and that is what we're talking about today. I think it is general knowledge around the world that the US has the strongest military, but how strong is it actually? I have no idea. Military in Germany, where I live, is not a big topic, but let's see how big the topic. I know the topic is bigger in the US, but let's see how strong it actually is.
Why is the US military the strongest? Great military powers have been appearing and disappearing since the beginning of history. But what makes it so powerful? Will its power remain undisputed? Are there already signs of weakness? Would it really stand in a conflict with potential rivals like China or Russia? To find out, we should analyse why exactly the US military is considered the strongest. The numbers. The US has 1,400,000 active military personnel. This figure places it in third place in this category. China has the largest army with slightly above 2 million soldiers, while India comes in second place.
So the two biggest countries in the world, population-wise, have way higher numbers in infantry. 1.4 million, population is like 340 million. So every like 200th person in the US is in the military. Oh.
This doesn't sound that impressive, but what makes the US military stand out is not necessarily the raw number of men. The US has unquestionable air supremacy. The US military is number one in air power, with 13,264 total military aircraft, a total that is greater than the other 5 greatest air forces combined.
Dude, that is crazy. I also know the US has so many air bases around the world, and I loved playing fighter jet games as a kid. I was so fascinated by flying. The F-14 Tomcat was my favorite fighter jet. I even had a favorite fighter jet. How weird is that? And yeah, then I think it was successed by the F-18 Hornet. That was for the longest time. I don't even know what's going on nowadays. There's also not been a good fighter jet game really lately, but yeah. But those numbers are crazy.
2,085 are air-to-air fighters.
So 2,085 actual fighters. I think that's the Hornet here. And yeah, Russia with their mix and stuff, always the big enemy in these games. China, I don't know, dude. I feel like China is so intransparent. I wonder what's going on there, you know?
Fighters, 715 ground attack aircraft, 945 transportation aircraft.
Wow, that's 1,000 transportation aircrafts.
Wow. 5,768 helicopters.
Ooh, helicopters, totally forgot about that. Comanche, anybody? I don't know, man. It's so weird that like there's so many games, and we even played US Army as a kid in Germany in a small town somewhere. How famous it is. The army is just so famous, known around the world. Dude, almost 6,000 helicopters. And then that's again more than all the other 4 combined.
Helicopters
by far.
And 967 attack helicopters.
Okay, those are the attack ones. What was it? The Apache longbow, man.
The US is number one in each aircraft category, except for air-to-ground forces, where it's slightly topped by Russia. The US has a powerful navy that is designed to work in conjunction with its air forces. It has 20 aircraft carriers, 11 are regular fixed-wing carriers, while 9 are capable of hosting only helicopters and short takeoff planes like
Dude, I didn't know there were only helicopter aircraft carriers.
This is almost half of the world's total number of aircraft carriers, while most of the others belong to allied countries.
Wow. Dude, I did not know how little aircraft carriers overall there are. I mean, it makes sense. It's like a city on water and it's massive and probably so expensive. But I always like pictured how would it be like to live on one of these, or I don't know, be a pilot. I think there must be thousands of people on one of those, and if you're one of the fighter pilots, how many pilots? A couple of them are pilots, right? So they must be like the stars of the college, you know, the high school. I don't know, man. It's so cool. So Japan has 4 of them. France, okay. Yeah, Germany is not going to be anywhere in these statistics after the history. Like, they kept the military super small.
If we take into account only regular fixed-wing aircraft capacity, the total combined deck space of the US aircraft carriers is over twice that of all the other nations combined. To complement this, the US Navy has the greatest number of destroyers and ranks third in the number of submarines.
Man, I didn't know Japan has such a big military after after
The
World War
numbers
II,
of the
you know?
US naval strength are a bit tricky. Land power. The US is slightly behind Russia regarding raw numbers. American ground forces number 6,289 tanks, 39,000 armoured vehicles, 1,465 self-propelled artillery, and 1,366
Russia has a
rocket
lot of
projectors.
artillery.
However, Russia has a lot of outdated vehicles with questionable performance in case of a real conflict.
And I wonder how accurate that is, but you always hear that Russia pretends to have like this super military power, and then it says like, yeah, they don't have gas to run their tanks, they're just falling down apart, most of them won't even start. That's what you hear in the West. I wonder how accurate that is, but yeah, I can totally see them inflating the numbers.
The US has 5,800 nuclear warheads that make it the world's second largest in nuclear warpower. In this video, we're analysing the conventional military strength, but it can't be denied that a nuclear arsenal does bring a certain status. Even if things don't escalate to a full-blown nuclear war, it's intimidating to any country to be armoured with such nuclear power.
That is true, and some of the most questionable countries in the world have them.
The US Army consists entirely of trained professionals, and many have real combat experience. Since the beginning of this century, the US has been involved in military conflicts in Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Somalia, Libya, Uganda, and Yemen. While other countries still rely on conscripts to fill the numbers, the US can field an army of well-trained, experienced professionals. The equipment, the military assets, and the technology used in combat have excellent quality.
So quality over quantity, but they also have quantity, so big problem.
Another defining trait of the United States military. Size, technology, and experience are nothing if you can't reach the enemy. Power projection is the ability of a state to deploy and sustain forces outside its territory. Only a few states are capable to overcome the difficulties that involve power projection, and the US excels at it. The home base of the US is safe. The neighbouring countries are friendly. Potential enemies are far away. The US forces can reach far, fast, and deploy great numbers of forces supported by the enforcement.
The hell was that? Was this amphibious like tanks? What? They come from the water and then they go on land? What is this?
Fast and deploy great numbers of forces supported by the enforcement of air and sea superiority. The US has by far the largest network of military bases operating outside of its territory.
Big point.
Information regarding the exact number and location of such bases involves classified information. A rough estimate would be around 1,000 overseas US military compounds. Approximately 165,000 military personnel is stationed outside the United States.
165,000 people who are permanently based around there. That's quite the big network. And you always hear these people, yeah, I've been a army base, army bred, whatever. It's always the people that move around, like Americans growing up in Okinawa or somewhere in Germany, just these base people. It's surprisingly how many of those you meet if you like going around and meeting Americans. But yeah.
This doesn't include areas of conflict such as Syria, Iraq and Afghanistan. The US has significant forces deployed in around 55 countries and autonomous territories. It is also estimated that more than 150 countries have a certain degree of US military presence.
So this is basically where all the bases are and the reach they have. So surprisingly, a lot of Central America, nothing, but I guess it's close enough. Didn't know Africa is so patchy, but they have bases in a lot of African countries. That's surprising. The East. It's probably where China is like, nah, you stay out of here. This is our region. In Thailand, in Cambodia, interesting.
Alliances. The United States can rely on a vast network of alliances. It is the de facto leader of NATO, the world's strongest military alliance.
Yes.
18 other countries are designated as major non-NATO allies. This list
I never heard about that. Major non-NATO allies.
includes countries like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Thailand, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Egypt, Israel, Argentina, and Brazil. Some countries are not formal allies but have a strong strategic partnership with the US. One notable example is India, that participates in regular military drills together with US forces and some of its allies. Economy. Modern warfare is sustained in the long term by two main factors: the capacity to produce military equipment and the capacity to spend money on defence.
Source it, yeah.
American defence companies are the indisputable top producers of weaponry. Among the world's top 10 defence suppliers, 5 of them are American companies.
It has to be a German one, right? Airbus Group. Oh no, I'm surprised. I thought something like Rheinmetall or something.
Lockheed Martin is the biggest. It reported a revenue of almost $60 billion in 2019. That's close to Russia's entire annual military spending. The strength of the US military is also due to its huge military budget. In 2019, spending on the US military was a whopping $732 billion US.
Yeah, this is very controversial, right? Because how much do you really need to spend in the military? But US historically is just like so big, so important. It's always been there. I feel like it's a valid career path for so many young Americans, and it's a lot of money though.
Dollars. That's almost 3 times more than China, the world's second largest military spender, and is roughly 1/3 of the entire world's defence budget. While Russia is commonly regarded as the second most powerful army in the world, its budget consists of only $65 billion. Arguably, there is an aspect of purchasing power. For example, it's cheaper to pay a Russian or Chinese soldier. The reason that the US can afford such an enormous military budget is that it's supported by a strong economy. America has been the world's largest economy since 1871. Besides the ability to sustain an enormous defence budget, the US often uses its economic strength as a weapon by enforcing economic sanctions. Soft power is another factor that comes into play when assessing a country's might. The US is world-beating in culture, education and technology.
It's a bold statement. The US is world-beating in culture, education and technology. See what they mean.
American pop culture has an enormous influence, and this won't change anytime soon. America also hosts most of the world's top-ranking universities with a record number of international students. The US leads the world of technology and digitalization as home to the world's most influential tech companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Facebook. Imagine an enemy soldier that would have to attack the country where his cousin studies, the country of his favourite music band, the country of his favourite actors from the movie that he watches on an American media platform like YouTube, or an American smartphone with American software. Finally, there is another critical aspect. It is called the will to fight, and this is the single most important factor in war. The will to fight is the disposition to engage in combat, the determination.
Well, it is a big factor. I just don't know if you have 10 tanks and the others have 1,000. I don't know if your will to fight is going to do much. But I think America is a very patriotic country, right? A lot of people love their country and they think they need to protect it and defend it, and like they have to. I think they should in case of, if you have to. But I think it's instilled very early in school. I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think even in elementary school, you might say the Pledge of Allegiance at some point, I don't know, daily, weekly or what. I really wonder, that's a big question mark, when you think about war, how willing are these soldiers that are actually performing the fights, how much will they have to fight? And a good example right now is Ukraine with Russia. So many Russians, males of military age, flee the country to avoid that. And I wonder if the ones that got conscribed, is that the word, that had to go to war, how much will they have to fight, So that is a big factor, and it's a shitty factor because a lot of times it's not voluntarily that people have to go to war. There comes a factor in that the US has this professional military and not just people. They're not just starting to conscribe people, it's people who are soldiers by profession.
To keep fighting even when facing precarious odds, and finally to win. At an individual level, a soldier with a low will to fight will avoid engagement with the enemy and is likely to flee when things get tough. Wars don't end when one military destroys the other. Wars end when one side grows weary of fighting, doesn't see any further purpose in the continuation of the conflict, and gives up. The national will to fight is what keeps a nation fighting. This is commonly linked to a sense of patriotism, national identity, and motivation generated by the idea that one fights for what is right. In the past, this has been a strong point of the US, as Americans have been fighting against dictators and terrorists that lacked concern for human life and dignity.
Yeah, that's true.
The American soldier has been motivated by a sense of moral supremacy rooted in the country's Christian tradition. However, America doesn't seem to be so cohesive in its values anymore. There are many factors intertwined that provoke this. It's a complex topic that deserves a study on its own. But the outcome is that America is now...
But yeah, I think the point she's trying to make is that wars nowadays, they get more controversial, you know. There's never an altruistic motive to go into war, and every war, I think, gets major criticism, rightfully so, because let's face it, war is shit, but you know, the question is it necessary or not? There's always blood on the hands of both sides, you know.
A country that is greatly divided among ideological lines and systems of belief. Many of its citizens are not sure what to believe in anymore, or even what they stand for. It's a matter of this great nation getting back its cohesion and moral compass. That is, if it wants to keep its status as the world's greatest superpower and defender of freedom.
Damn, there was some patriotic defender of freedom. I kind of agree. That's how I always hoped the US would act. What do we take away from this? The US military is still the strongest. They have major naval appearance and numbers and major aircraft stuff, man. I don't know why for boys and young men and men in general, why military is so interesting. It draws you in a little bit, you know. I don't know why we ran around 14 years old at night with our flashlights pretending it to be guns. We had flashlight fights. We played US Youth Army in our little town, and I don't know, dude, there's something fascinating about the military, the equipment, weapons, vehicles, airplanes, all of that. So yeah, let me know what you think about this topic. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Bye.